Wow.
You guys both look like two students sitting outside the principal's office.
We're ready.
Here we go.
Welcome to our media briefing today and public access. We have a few viewers over the internet, and we welcome those folks who are watching. We had our Arts Day at the Capitol and our Arts Day in the Senate. We've had our Senate contest, and 26 winners of scholarships were here today, and their art is presented or displayed out in the hallway. And it's amazing the talent that we have, and we want to congratulate all those students who submitted art and who received scholarships today, and for all those who participated. All the artwork was fantastic. And we have Senator Osmond here with us. He passed Senate Bill 97 out with 22 yay votes today. And so let's go to any questions from the media.
24 ion tubes.
Senator
Not
Osmond,
that bad. Yeah, go ahead.
I know you had a big long presentation and it's a very complex issue, and I think I understand what your bill does, but could you explain it to me like I'm a fourth grader?
Sure.
What essentially SB 97 would do?
You bet. Well, the bottom line is that half of our local school districts do not have sufficient funding to meet the local needs that they have. And when you consider that 40% of education funding comes from local property taxes, that's a big challenge for these districts. So this bill simply generates $75 million worth of new money for education. That's a really critical point. We are going back. This is, in fact, in the form of a tax increase, but it's going back and looking at the fact that our state property tax rate has not been adjusted for 16 years. We're going to go back and adjust that rate to capture back some of the inflationary impact that we've had, and then use that money to ensure that every school district has adequacy, sufficient funding on the local property tax level to meet their local needs. So that's really the easy way to look at the bill.
So the state property tax level will increase a bit and basically capture more of the increase of property values?
So the impact is that an average family with a home of about $250,000 worth of value will see a property tax increase of about $45. That money will be used by the state to send back out to the districts to equalize the districts so that every school district has about the same average amount of funding for those half of the school districts that are currently adequately funded. But that's the impact.
There was a lot of talk today, Senator, about people supporting it because it's the best option on the table.
Yes.
Is there potentially another option that could be better come along?
Well, we've looked hard for that option, frankly, over the last many years. We've tried to approach it more in the context of taking from one school district and giving it to another. When you consider that Park City generates $6,500 in local revenue per student and South San Pete generates $1,409, why couldn't we just take from Park City and give it to South San Pete? The challenge is the politics of it. We've tried that now at least 5 times. It's the only other viable solution, and politically it's just not going to happen. So the best thing to do is to introduce new money in education that hasn't already been budgeted for and use those funds to address this inequity. And it's a real challenge, but at the end of the day, we are responsible for solving that funding inequity. Nobody else can do it, and that's why I think my colleagues and I in majority made the decision that we need to move forward with this concept.
And how much does the threat of a potential lawsuit motivate you and your colleagues?
Well, it's a motivator. It's not the motivator. I think Senator Hilliard said it best today, that it's the right thing to do. We don't want to ever be in a position, and I doubt that we ever will, but it's possible. There's still the conversation of adequacy versus equity. That could be a legal issue, but at the end of the day, it's doing the right thing for our school districts and taking care of a problem that we can solve when we put our heads to it.
How much, you said San Pete's at $1,409 right now, South San Pete. How much does this get them to? I mean,
well, it will bring, the funding model brings them all up to the same level that our charter schools are guaranteed under current statute, which is about $1,746 per student. So it's a few $100s more, but you would be surprised what an impact that additional funding is for those local districts. $300 or $400 per student can be a massive change to their current funding situation.
If capturing inflation isn't really a tax increase, then we have a tax increase every year without us acting, because our income tax is on a percentage and so is our sales tax. And so we experience tax increases all the time just because of inflation. This is like our gas tax, which is on more of a set level, and so it doesn't capture any inflation. And this doesn't even capture the inflation.
No.
This is just a portion of that. And so, yeah, it'll be, it's, you know, obviously a tax increase, but it's no different than capturing the inflation in income tax and sales tax without us doing anything as a legislature.
In fact, to that point, you know, in my district, in District 10, as I talk to both my delegates and also citizens in the area, their feedback is they're very interested in seeing new money for public education. However, they want that money to come to their local school, and they want to know that it's impacting the quality of education in their local district. And this is exactly what that does. This funding goes right to the local districts. It bypasses the state, goes right to the local districts, and empowers them to make local decisions on how that funding should be used. And there is a recognition that we have a need for additional funding in education. Well, that isn't the primary goal. The primary goal is adequacy and equity. It is a new funding source for public education.
Any other questions on Senate Bill 97?
so from a practical standpoint, you're still going to have Park City residents sending money to South San Pete. It's just not the money that's going to Park City now. It's
Correct.
a new pot of money.
Correct. Exactly right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other further questions on that?
Other questions on other issues?
Yeah, count my vote. One of the bills in the House failed in committee today, but I understand you guys have a hearing or a floor debate coming up for your version of that bill.
Senator Jenkins' bill to delay the enactment of SB 54 for 2 years.
Yeah. Any guesses as to how you think that's going to fare, given what happened today in the House committee?
I wasn't aware of what happened there. I know that there are a number of people that are not in favor of the delay, but we haven't actually counted votes yet, so it's hard for me to say whether that will pass or not.
What about how did it fare in caucus? Did you discuss it in caucus?
We have not had a caucus position on that bill. Senator Oakland?
We're actually going to try to get that scheduled for this Thursday's caucus, where we will be discussing the timing issue is kind of what Senator Jenkins' bill addresses, but we have not taken any position yet, and I'm not sure where that discussion Thursday will take us.
Senator Bramble's here, sponsor of SB 54 last year. If you have any questions for him.
Please step into the hot seat.
We're asking for you.
As Senator, I'm sure I don't know if you're aware, but the House committee voted to kill the bill that would have delayed SB 54 on the House side.
By 6-3, I heard.
Yeah, 6-3. Your thoughts on that? Since you drafted the SB 54, the compromise.
Well, the challenge that we have, when we looked at what the initiative would do to the caucus system, it would have eliminated it entirely. So we came up with an alternative that would allow the caucus system to continue in light of an initiative. The sponsors of the initiative agreed to withdraw their initiative if Senate Bill 54 passed in the negotiated form that it passed in. That included a very robust debate about the timing of the implementation. And the challenge is that that bill passed a year ago. And whether the Republican Party has taken steps to attempt to implement 54 or not is up to the party to govern themselves. But the timing on the effective date was something that was a part of the compromise. And I believe personally that the legislature needs to hold to the terms of that compromise, specifically because the initiative backers pulled the initiative. As a legislator, I have to put myself in the position, how would we feel if we negotiated, passed Senate Bill 54, and then the Count My Vote folks went ahead with the initiative after they said that they would withdraw it? We'd be in a very similar position that they're in right now. So my belief is that we need to hold, in terms of legislative integrity, that we need to hold to the terms of what Senate Bill 54 has, including the timing.
Do you think you'll be able to do that? I mean, there are a couple of bills moving their way through to try to undo this or delay it.
Well, that is our process, is to have any legislator can bring forward any proposal, and our process is to vote what we think is best public policy. The question is whether the legislature will stand behind the agreement that was reached last year that caused the initiative to be withdrawn. That really is the bottom line that we're dealing with this session.
Do you think there's any validity to the Republican Party claims that they don't have enough time to implement it in between now and 2016?
I think that's up to the Republican Party to address. I would note that the Republican Party seems to have plenty of time to change their bylaws to propose a presidential caucus, which is a rather significant change from having a presidential primary.
They're claiming that if they have to go through with SB 54, that there's a chance that they may not wind up on the ballot in 2016, the Republican Party. You buy it?
The Lieutenant Governor's office has issued an opinion suggesting that that's not an accurate reading of the bill. There is a bill coming forward in my name that would remove any doubt about that issue. But as Senate Bill 54 currently sits, the Lieutenant Governor's office said no, Republicans would still file as Republicans and still be on the ballot. So there's a difference of opinion apparently between the Republican Party and the folks that actually have the responsibility for administering our election laws.
You're also running then a bill that would
remove any question on that point.
Any more questions on Count My Vote issue?
Dude, we talked about the plurality issue last week when you were here, and you've been looking at the best way to resolve that. Have you come to a decision on how you want to do that?
Personally, I have not. Discussions about plurality are ongoing. I think with the party bringing the lawsuit, I think that, for me personally, I would prefer holding to the Senate Bill 54 and then dealing with plurality in a future session.
Senator Jenkins is here and probably address any questions about the two bills that he has on the board.
How do you think your bill's going to fare?
Well, I don't know. Time will tell. You know, the idea here is We've not been able to coalesce around any specific bill here, so we just went, basically, the party asked us to run this as a, simply a bill that will delay, so that will give them a chance to get their delegates together. And, you know, the party deals with 4,000 delegates, and it's not easy, approximately 4,000. It's not easy to get unanimity there as they decide what they're going to do and how they're going to comply with these regulations of Senate Bill 54. So they've asked us to do that, and you know, they weren't part of this grand arrangement, so compromise is called. So I agree with that. And that's what Senate Bill 43 is morphed into.
They've openly said, the party's openly said that they are against the changes made in it before, that they don't like it. Do you think it's disingenuous then to say that they don't have time to change it when they don't plan, they don't want to make the changes to begin with?
I don't believe it's disingenuous because they didn't like it. They weren't part of the process. They were left out of it.
They told us they
they're not
specifically
unhappy
sat
with it
out
anyway.
though so that they could sue. That they didn't want to be a party because they wanted
Well,
to.
you have to ask Senator Bramble about that. He was one in the negotiation.
I'd be happy to respond to that. The House sponsor, Representative Dan McKay, and myself met with the State Republican Party's governing body, the Central Committee, spent the better part of a Saturday morning presenting the issues on Senate Bill 54. And the real challenge here on a delay, had there been a delayed effective date in Senate Bill 54, which is what is now going to be before the Senate, the initiative would not have been withdrawn. That they would have gone forward with the initiative regardless. That was part of what was in Senate Bill 54 was the timing, and the issue now is if we would have had the delay, they would not have removed the initiative from the ballot, and so we're left in a bit of a quandary. But for the party to say that they weren't part of the process really is a bit of a challenge, because, as I say, we spent the better part of a Saturday morning down at the Provo City Council chambers meeting with the Central Committee and explaining, and the party had the opportunity at that time to pass a resolution opposing 54, which they didn't do.
Did they pass one supporting it?
They did not.
Okay, it goes both ways.
What about that point, though, Senator Jenkins, that Count My Vote lived up to their end of the bargain? I've also heard people in this room say a deal is a deal is a deal. So why can't the Republican Party live up to their end of it?
Because the Republican Party didn't take a position of support. They felt like they were on the outside looking in this. That's what James Evans said. You've heard him been quoted many times as saying that. And so that goes to my resolution that I have here. The resolution would, in fact, take it to the ballot, and I'm very supportive of that. I think we should have gone to the ballot in the first place. I think it was a mistake to prevent it from going there. And so I think that is exactly what should have happened. And, you know, it's interesting that they would, that this creates an alternative path to the primary and not an alternative path to the ballot, because that it should be to the general election, not to the primary. That's like us two getting together and deciding how we want you to operate. And you know, it really should go to the general ballot. So anyway, that's what it does, and so that's the idea behind the two.
Do you think, how far down the board is it? Do you think it's going to be today, tomorrow?
Oh no, it's down there a little ways. It'll probably be Thursday, Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably Friday.
I'm trying to get James Evans on our caucus agenda for Thursday anyway, to come specifically talk about that, what he feels their participation in the process was.
Are you, Senator Bramble, maybe you're the best person to address this. James has said that if the delay isn't made, then there could not be Republican candidates on the ballot in 2016. Are you concerned at all about? Well, you're not on in 2016.
I am. I'm up for election in 2016.
Concerned that you won't be
The elections office disagrees with Chairman Evans' interpretation of 54.
What?
And he has, he's mentioned a little earlier, he has a bill to address that if there's any question.
There is a bill that will be, I think the language will probably be public today. It's being reviewed by the elections office. It's at the request of the elections office to clarify that point. They've already opined on the status of partisan candidates being on the ballot. They've said that that the party's interpretation is not accurate on that. They've issued an opinion on that. It's been widely reported. So there is a difference there. The intent of this bill would be to remove any doubt about whether Republicans would be on the ballot with Senate Bill 54.
Yeah. The one thing that is the wild card here is 4,000 delegates. I mean, we're talking in a room here with a few people, and James Evans is dealing with 4,000 delegates that he's got to pull together and get them to coalesce around that. That is the wild card. So everybody says, oh, it can be done, it can be done. Well, it can be done if he's got 4,000 people, or the majority of 4,000, that will vote in favor of doing these things. But if he can't, James Evans has got an issue.
That's what I was getting at, is
Yeah.
if there's simply a refusal to do it,
Right.
then you guys are all out of luck, I guess.
Right, Robert?
Any questions from our viewers?
We had one for Osmond, but he walked out, so we're going to get him tomorrow.
Okay.
President Hauser, I'd like to ask you about something else, if we could.
Okay.
In regards to Medicaid expansion, Senate Bill 153 passed the HHS committee today. So we have that and 164 now both set to hit the Senate floor. How do you see those two playing out on the Senate?
We're going to continue to have caucus discussions about that, and we'll have a little bit of discussion today. And until we agree on which one we're going to have move forward, we wanted to make sure both are in play, because we don't know exactly what the outcome is going to be here in the legislature regarding Medicaid expansion.
You have said previously that you're leaning toward, I don't remember the exact words, but that you're leaning toward Healthy Utah. Do you still take that stance? And,
Yes, I do,
and why?
because I want to make sure that we get the coverage gap covered. And the Senate passed our bill last year, Senator Shizawa, that would cover that gap, but that doesn't work. We couldn't get a waiver to do that. Well, maybe we possibly could, but we were told no. We didn't actually do a formal request for a waiver. So we were going to do at a 90-10 split. So we were looking at a 70-30, and that cost $50 million more than Healthy Utah. And so when I discovered that about a month or so ago, I thought, well, that doesn't work for us. And out of all the options I have seen to cover that 0 to 100%, Healthy Utah is really the only option that does that now. There's the medically frail option, but that doesn't cover the gap. That covers a portion of the gap.
How strong is the sentiment within the Senate, do you think, to do nothing, to not expand at all?
I think that a super majority would want to do something. There are those who want to do nothing, but I think that at least as a Senate, there is a favor to figure out what we can do and what we can get the House and everybody to agree to, because you got to get 15 votes in the House or in the Senate and 38 votes in the House. And the governor has to agree to all that too.
They're caucusing today, I understand, about Medicaid expansion and all of those proposals and plans. Any agreement from the Senate for the super, ultra, mega caucus that the House floated a while back?
We still haven't decided to do that as a Senate, and I think it's kind of lost steam even in the House. So I actually think that won't happen.
Well, President, if I could go back on 54, I'd like to make one observation. When we brought forward Senate Bill 54, the purpose of that bill was to preserve the caucus system in Utah, because had the initiative passed in its original form, caucuses would have been eliminated in their entirety. And so the purpose of the bill, the intent, believing that the initiative would get the signatures, believing that the initiative, based on all the polling information, the best information that we had, the legislature supported the notion of preserving the caucus, not in a pure form, but without Senate Bill 54, caucuses would have been eliminated from the political process having any meaningful purpose. That's why we brought forward the bill to begin with.
And we really don't want to debate that issue here today. We're just I had both Senator Jenkins and Senator Bramble come in here to answer questions. And so is there any more questions on that issue?
Just on that, I wanted to ask, do you think efforts to delay it or alter it could be counterproductive in that in the end it could do away with the caucus system if Count My Vote moves forward with the initiative?
I think that'll be up to Count My Vote to respond to.
Senator Hilliard, what are the new revenue numbers going to look like? Interesting. We don't know. I keep hearing people say, oh, don't worry, they're going to be up higher. People say, oh, there's concerns. If I told you now, Bob, you wouldn't come tomorrow night to executive appropriations. We want all of you there to accurately report everything we do and say.
Anybody gonna get a budget cut?
I think we found what cuts, and I do that in a way of reallocations that the committees have done already. So I don't think anything in addition to that, although you don't know if there's revenues come in, well, it'd have to be substantially lower than what we're projecting. So the interesting thing about budget cuts up here is if they're thinking you're going to get 100 million and you only get 80 million, it's not that they got 80 million, they got a $20 million cut. So I have to be careful how I define that. I suspect that we're going to have more money to spend than we have for some time, and hopefully we can wisely invest that in such a way that don't come back next year cutting into ongoing budgets because the revenue was just a bubble. That's all I'm concerned.
So ultimately, though, when it washes, you suspect you'll have more money to spend this year.
We will.
We're really not doing our job if we're not looking at ways to reprioritize. Programs enacted 20 years ago become obsolete, and there's better ways to do those things. And so, looking into those budgets, cutting those things that are less relevant today, and putting it where it's more relevant. That's our job, and that's what this process has been about. Our budget process this year.
And to you, Bob, I'll give you the answer Thursday morning.
Special.
All right, I think that's it. So thanks everyone for being here. Thanks to our viewers for being here.
Let's straighten this.